Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here. Today we're talking about a new leak from Bloomberg because apparently a bunch of sources inside of Sony talking about PlayStation and people inside of Nintendo, they are panicking. And I want to talk about this because it seems like there is a lot of terror inside of these companies because of the worldwide tech shortages. You know, historically, whenever we talked about console generations, whether the one that just started or what's coming up, there's usually just so much excitement. Oh, I've got a PlayStation 1. Wow, I'm excited about the PlayStation 2. Or going into stuff like the Xbox 360, these truly crazy HD graphics. And yeah, the systems were expensive even at launch, but usually they'd be followed with a lot of price cuts. You know, a game comes out and it costs $500, then $400, then $300. And this has not been the case with this console generation, right? It seems like constantly we keep getting these huge price increases, and now the discussion is that Sony is making a tough call. Nintendo is going to jack up the price of the Nintendo Switch 2, and Sony is apparently saying that the PlayStation 6 needs to come out next decade. Let me break this down. Hi, I'm DreamcastGuy. Just subscribe and like the video if you enjoy some off-the-cuff daily gaming content. But this is where things really got weird. So I saw this morning and actually got posted exactly 4 hours ago, very early AM Texas time. But Sony is considering pushing back the debut of its next console to 2028 or 2029. Now, consider how apocalyptic this is, right? A lot of these companies are very dependent on hype, on just constantly getting people to say, oh, I want to invest in this era of the system. I'm excited, right? FOMO is such a big part of marketing now, of making sure, oh man, you don't want to miss out. Everybody else is playing these crazy new games. Oh, do you want to see the new Spider-Man? Oh man, you want Wolverine? And he's going, blah, 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 blah. That's a lot of their marketing ploy. But there's always that sort of tease, right? Next generation is going to be even better. Next generation is going to be even crazier graphics. Next generation is going to be even more fully realized. And for the first time, I do feel like people are just like, okay, the PlayStation 5 is already fantastic. The PS5 is selling like crazy, getting great exclusives and stuff. But it's also just the fact that the PS5 is currently the default gaming machine for a huge chunk of the console gaming market. It's where you go to play Call of Duty or Final Fantasy or whatever, right? The Witcher 3. You play it on PlayStation. And it sounds like Sony is in a spot where they're saying, okay, I guess we really can't do that FOMO marketing. We can't really tease the future because right now, even we can't bet that that future is going to be affordable. And also, at the same time, Nintendo is contemplating raising the price of the Nintendo Switch 2. Now, these are directly connected. The reason this is just one big blurb is because it's all coming down to the obvious AI tech shortage. I think that some people are kind of just having trouble sort of understanding how this could possibly happen. How can there be things like the original Nintendo Switch having its price go up? Xbox having like 5 price increases in a row? How does this actually make sense? You know, we've always existed in this time of seemingly infinite tech, where you could just make and make and make. Oh, you need a million iPhones? Well, then you make a million iPhones. But for the first time, these AI companies are mass buying up stuff that isn't even produced yet. These AI companies have so many trillions of dollars of investment. They're buying factories. They're back ordering stuff for years and years in advance. Hard drives are sold out for the entire year. Like, consider it. Something even like a cell phone, right? This is my phone. My phone's all busted up because I'm a cheapo. This is a Google Pixel 6a. This phone is many, many years out of date at this point. But it is interesting to think that if I wanted to try and buy a new one, it might cost more production-wise than this took to create. And a lot of console manufacturers are starting to have that problem, right? Okay, what if we can't compete in a bidding war? If we're trying to bid on chips to get 10 million chips for the PlayStation 6 and we're competing against a company with $10 trillion of backed up capital, we can't really bid against that. We have to push it out, or we have to make the PlayStation 6 like $1,200. Now, I saw a lot of the comments. I think the gaming community is currently experiencing a mood for the first time where people don't want a console generation simply because a potential next-gen console won't offer anything other than improved graphics. And this is a concept I think that maybe some people are really starting to kind of get to sink in. Previously, when you got those next-gen, it created this extra sense of gameplay capabilities, right? Like if you played Assassin's Creed, their whole thing was crowd density. When you came to the PlayStation 5, it's, oh wow, there isn't load times as much. Or even the first consoles that had an Ethernet port built into the back. The first online play that ever existed, games like Phantasy Star Online on the Dreamcast, right? There was always this potential to, hey, the tech is advancing the game and not just the visuals. But now we are really just hitting this point where we know the PlayStation 6 is just going to have pretty much the exact same controller as what the PlayStation 4 had, but higher resolution. I don't really know if that needs to exist at all, and it's hard to really sell me on, oh, the next-gen experiences, the best exclusives will only be here. That really isn't having the same pull as it maybe had 10, 15, 20 years ago. I reckon Nintendo will try some bundle shenanigans, something like that, so it doesn't look like a price increase. You know, sell that Mario Kart bundle without the Mario Kart, or sub in an online trial or welcome tour or something like that instead. This is the thing, is that a lot of people are like, okay, we do know that Nintendo has already been talking about how they're trying to raise prices. Like they're saying, oh, we really don't want to do this. They actually published this here 2 weeks ago. They officially did like this investor call and said, we're carefully evaluating the price of the Nintendo Switch 2 and if it needs to be increased. And what's this again? Memory costs rise. No hard drives, no storage. You have to increase the price in order to make it where you can bid more on the actual physical tech. And even if I understand it financially, the gamers aren't really going to get that, right? On the back end, I'm still in that train of thought where like, okay, people, even if they can do the mental math and go, oh, this $100 price increase isn't because of greed, it's because of market conditions. They don't feel that, right? You know, it still is a $100 price increase. It doesn't magically become more justified if they're, oh, I can understand why it happened. They just see it as a $100 price increase that's now pushing it outside of their budget, right? But I thought it was interesting that a lot of people are basically just saying that this just feels like next gen has to go further and further out, because until this gets solved, how do we really adapt, right? If the Nintendo Switch 2 keeps getting more expensive and keeps selling worse and worse, what is Nintendo's option, right? Like, actually consider that. If the price of the Nintendo Switch 2, it seems like the upfront price of the Nintendo Switch 2 has already kind of hurt the sales of it. The Nintendo Switch 1 was such a skyrocket, instant popularity. The Nintendo Switch 2 seems to be having a bit slower start. And some third-party developers have already said that Nintendo Switch 2 third-party games haven't been selling the best. I do think that's part of it because of that $500 price tag. This is $200 more expensive than Nintendo Switch 1 it was at launch. Maybe they're going to buy less third-party games, right? I am kind of just thinking about the fact that, okay, what happens if, 3-4 years down the road, Nintendo wants to release a Nintendo Switch 3, but they just can't? Like, straight up, the system would be too expensive. The technology just isn't there. And a lot of people are basically saying that maybe this is the kind of thing where the PlayStation 5 should just stay, where the Nintendo Switch 2 should just hang out. Sony should just wait and keep building up the PS5 library. How the PS5 will chokehold the console market for the next 4 years and sell over 130 million units. There is this interesting thing where I have actually seen this sentiment a lot. I expect the PlayStation 6 to be postponed, so I recently bought a PS5 Pro. I've seen a lot of people sort of just saying, you have to buy now. The FOMO is no longer about being excited about the next generation. The FOMO is almost pessimistic. Buy it before it gets worse. This is your last chance to jump on the ship before it departs. Prices are only going up. It's time to invest. And I just don't like that idea around gaming. I did see this tweet. Twitter actually went down right as I started recording this video, but I screenshotted it. So here's a screenshot of it. Synth Potato, obviously I love his takes a lot. 100% good thing for the PlayStation 6. We do not need the PS6 anytime soon. The PS5 generation has barely started, with cross-gen only now phasing out properly, especially when you consider the 2 years of console shortages we had at launch. The PlayStation 6 coming out 2028 to 2029 makes far more sense than 2027. I am just in a spot now where I'm kind of considering what happens if this is the last console generation for a while. Like, what if just to try and make things as good as possible. I have always been a huge advocate for the accessibility of gaming price-wise. Make systems as cheap as humanly possible. I've always thought that's actually one of the big things that was cool about the Switch Lite when that came out, right? A $200 Nintendo Switch. They put it on sale constantly for $180, and it plays the 1,000 games that came to Nintendo Switch. The retro games they've ported, like Final Fantasy VII and stuff. It's cool that the Switch Lite exists. And I'm almost terrified about a shrinking pool of gamers. Maybe I'm being too doomer, but I mean, a lot of kids right now, if you're growing up and you're like, all right, I can play crappy Roblox games with my friends, or I can beg my parents for a $700 PlayStation 5, they're probably going to choose those crappy Roblox experiences, even if they do suck, because they're free, because they are still games. I wish that PlayStation would keep the PS5 around long enough to make it cheap. If the PS5 gets down to $300, I'll be honest, I wouldn't mind if it stuck around for years and years and years. But I think we all know the opposite is going to happen. The prices are going to keep going up for every system, but especially the Nintendo Switch 2. And then on the other side of it, we're going to get a next gen that is ridiculously expensive. And I don't even know what happens after that. Do they revert? There was a console a long time ago called the Atari 2600. Atari 2600, huge, monumental, massive success. But it sold so well when they released the subsequent systems, the 5400, the 7200, they're just dead. So because of it, developers only made Atari 2600 games for the most part. What happens if the PlayStation 6 comes out and sells 1 million things? Do you think developers are really going to support it? It would be weird if the PS5 lives forever, if the Nintendo Switch 2 lives way beyond its lifespan, simply because next gen can't be bought. I don't know, off the cuff thoughts. Good morning, how are you? Hope you're having a great day. Be sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And please, keep dreaming. And how expensive do you think the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to get? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And I love you very much.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.